What if the most dangerous ransomware gang on the planet operated like a Fortune 500 company, running business like any successful U.S. organization would do, with metrics, dashboards, culture, benefits, and even scholarships? And what if I told you that the FBI just cracked into their inner sanctum, revealing secrets meant to stay buried? In this episode, I sit down with cybercrime investigator Jon DiMaggio, who went undercover into the world of LockBit, the notorious ransomware cartel that's extorted millions from businesses and rural hospitals, even children's cancer hospitals around the globe, including small, mid-sized businesses just like yours. Recently, LockBit themselves were hacked. Their infrastructure dismantled, their internal communications exposed, and their planning and their methodology laid bare for law enforcement. But here's the twist. Their leader, Dmitry Koroshev, known online and even right there on Twitter as the LockBit Sup, isn't some rogue hacker in a hoodie. He is a cold-blooded and ruthless entrepreneur. He runs LockBit like a well-oiled machine, even having a $10 million bounty from the FBI on his head. Security researcher Jon DiMaggio reveals how this cybercrime empire operates, from recruiting affiliates to negotiating ransoms. And while you haven't seen the last of them yet, even with their systems temporarily down, they're already planning and rebuilding. They're making a comeback. If you're a business leader who thinks ransomware is just an IT problem, then think again. Stick around, because this one could save you over $1 million and even save your company. Look, let's be real. Cybercrime is everywhere. Data breaches are hitting headlines constantly. I started Cybercrime Junkies for two reasons: because true crime stories are addictive, and because leadership can be learned, and great leaders need to understand cyber today without all the technical jargon. So do us a favor, smash that subscribe button. Join a community that's done with doing things the way they've always been done. So let's get ahead of the threats and become the kind of leaders who actually stop them. These days, being informed isn't optional. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show. LockBit. From a high level, for those that might not be aware or have heard or seen any of our prior episodes, one of the leading notorious cybercrime gangs on the planet.
I don't know the way to say it, popularity in the criminal name.
Mark and I subscribe to several things that pull things from the dark web, right? And we just see the breaches as they happen, like during the day. And it's like LockBit, 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 Clop with Move It, and it's like LockBit, and then a couple like new kids on the block. I'm like, who are you guys? You know, and then we're just like, it goes LockBit, and like, so you uncovered some really shocking things, and some of the mainstream media is starting to pick up some of this. Like, is LockBit, you know, folding? Are they imploding? Are they having issues? There were several things that you kind of uncovered. So you want to walk us through it from a high level, and then, you know, we can get into some specifics.
Yeah, sure. So, you know, there's a lot to this story, obviously, 70 pages of research, but the short, I guess, Cliff Notes to the point version of this, you know, really, you know, there's been a number of problems that LockBit's had with its operation, and that is a problem that it was lying to not just the general public to protect its reputation, but to its direct partners. And I'll talk about that here in a second. But as I worked through this and I began to realize these things, as I reached out to some of their top affiliates and partners and getting the confirmation of this and having them tell me, hey, we're leaving the operation or we've left their operation because of it, I was like, how does the rest of the world not know this? And I'm sure I'm not the only researcher that found it. There's got to be other people that saw it if I did. But as far as I know, I'm the only one that's talked about it or brought it to the public. So in essence, you know, they've been extorting people for money, and they've been struggling to actually follow through with their threats of posting data. That's the most significant finding. And think about it. They're hosting massive infrastructure on the dark web. In June of 2022, they switched up to a new ransomware called LockBit 3.0, and they more than doubled in their number of affiliates, and their attacks just blew up. I don't know the specific metrics on it, but they've more than doubled what they did the year before.
Let me interject one thing, just by way of background for those that might not be aware. So LockBit is like the core group, right? The name of the cybercrime gang is basically named after the code that they originally developed, right? It's the brand name of it. And then they themselves don't go and hack into the victims' networks. They engage these affiliates and they pay them. We've talked about it in other episodes. LockBit is really a unique model because they let the affiliates, these digital mercenaries essentially, go and collect the money and then cut LockBit their share. And the funds are extremely generous. As you've pointed out, it's not like buy a new car or even a new house type money. This is like buy an island type money.
Right. Yeah, correct. It's like buy an island type of money. You're 100% correct. And so LockBit's core gang, it's like a business operation that they run. Last time I asked, they had around 100 employees. That does not count what they call their partners, what we'll call their mercenary hackers or affiliates. They pay them literally to go out and to compromise and hack organizations, steal their data, expose, their sensitive information. And if they don't pay them, they claim that they're going to post their data. And historically, they've always done that. But that's kind of what I was leading to earlier, is with such a large volume, they've just exploded with the amount of attacks and how much data they're stealing. And they've made such an easy to use interface where it's literally point and click. Okay, I have the data. All right, now I'm going to load it up onto the website and it's going to create a victim entry. And now a timer starts. You're the victim. When this timer hits 0, I'm going to put your data out there. And it's that simple. The thing is, they've made such a strong reputation for themselves over the years now. September will be 4 years for them. They've made such a strong reputation that I think people just stopped actually looking to see if they could download the data. Or when they did, they just assumed, maybe it's like, I'm not used to using the dark web. I don't know, maybe it's not working. But nobody realized that it's more than that it's more of a problem. I started to pick up on it when
we have background. Let's remember that after Jon released his last kind of expose on LockBit, on LockBit's dark web site, their profile had Jon's picture there. So there's nothing that lets you sleep well at night.
Boy, that
the most notorious crime gang out there has your picture as their avatar.
They do. They do. Yes. So anyway, what I realized though is that they're not actually posting that data. And a couple months ago, they in the back end, so the public doesn't ever see this, even on their leak site, nobody sees this. But if you're in with them, the way they communicate on the back end, they use specific protocols and fairly uncommon, we'll call them apps that they use to communicate on that app. It's almost like that. Yep. Yes. Yeah. It's almost like their customer service communication method.
It's like
where if I'm an affiliate and I'm
right,
but with a lot less features. But it's the way that I come to you and I say, hey, my decryption key's not working. I got this victim ready to pay. I'm gonna make 10 mil. I need you to help me with this, and LockBit will help them out and get it going. Well, LockBit, shut down for just like a day or two, and he did that because they were doing an update to their infrastructure. So after that update, I thought, oh man, as I was in the middle of writing my report, I'm like, oh man, this sucks. They fixed it. More victim data is going to get out there. But what he actually did was that it was almost like a facade. He made the website now look like, so instead of posting the data, it would be like, pay, let's say the ransom was 100 million. After it expires, now a criminal could buy it for 60,000 or the victim. But so that's like giving him an excuse to not post it. But he still said, says all of your data is exposed, but you can't get it. And then in other instances, it would just say it's exposed, but the data just wasn't there still. And then there's a third scenario where they claimed that it would be exposed, and then there'd be like a link to some, public file sharing service. Well, here's the thing. Those public file sharing services can be taken down. And that's one of the things that these affiliates pay for is to have LockBit.
So they can't get caught. And so that it can't get taken down, right? Yeah. And this gets to the very heart of it, doesn't it? If you can't actually deliver on the thing you're threatening people on, right? Your whole business model kind of goes up in smoke.
It does.
Different things, right? Some might work for Clop, and some might work for it. All it's project based, basically. Right.
Yeah, mostly they're hired guns. Exactly. They want to get paid. They'll work for multiple gangs, but many of the top gangs, at least the ones that I communicate with them often at this point in my career from all the research that I've been doing, and feel like I know them as well as somebody could know them that's on the outside. And these guys were leaving. They're like, this is ridiculous. Like, I mean, it was literally like they were upset with the customer service. They upset they weren't getting what they were paid for. They don't treat it like, like they're criminals. They treat it literally like this is a business. They're not getting what they want.
Big, and then it just grew so fast that the customer service couldn't keep up with the demand.
And to make it worse, this Tox communication method, because it is so limited and they now have so much business that it sometimes takes over a week to get a response. So I mentioned they were gone for 2 days. Well, that was nothing. They came back. And, but you were still waiting for like a week to come back. So it's been a big problem. I used the analogy in my report because it just happened to me. If you've been on the phone trying to get something fixed with an airline and you're sitting there for hours, you are so frustrated. Now imagine that you're paying them millions of dollars.
Think about that. There's $10 million or $100 million that you're negotiating or ransoming, and you need answers, and they take a week to even get back to you.
Yes, it's crazy. And then the other, I guess, big thing that happened was, again, you have to really, I like to use the word stalk them to know when they're going to have dates and new updates and things like that.
Each year around June, they come out with their new and improved version of their product, right? Their platform, right?
Yes.
And they didn't this year.
But they did not this year. They missed that. Instead, a few months earlier in January, so like 6 months earlier in January, I think it was January. Yeah, they essentially, what they did is they took a leaked version of one of their competitors, the Conti ransomware gang. They took their leaked version and they just altered it to have their note, the LockBit ransomware note in it instead, and offered that up, calling it LockBit Green. Here's the problem. I've had that on a VM of mine since February of 2022. It's not new. There's some signatures out there to identify it. There's lots of things. So that's fine for us as defenders, but it's trouble for LockBit when bad guys are expecting to use that. The one thing they did have going for them is the affiliates who liked working for Conti are like, okay, well, I like this malware. I can continue to use it. But again, we've got signatures. It's not new. It can be defeated. Good for us, bad for them. But these are all things that just weren't really getting put out there. And LockBit has this strong narrative on these forums. And it's that everything's great, business as usual, on the top villain of the underworld, and everybody buys it. So I just wanted to shine some light where there hadn't been light in a long time and sort of challenge them that LockBit and be like, hey, companies, if you're a victim, really assess whether you want to pay, because you could roll the dice and you've got a good shot that they're not going to post it. Now, I get that doesn't mean that they may not try to post it to one of these file sharing services. But again, you can work with law enforcement and things to take it down. Still a risk, I understand, but it's not the same level.
It definitely helps defenders. It definitely helps those on the right side of cybercrime.
But that's got to damage their brand, because there's certain, I guess, street respect that they get. But now you're repackaging and relabeling Conti's ransomware.
Well, yeah. Here's the best part, and this really shocked me. Yeah, yesterday or the day before on the forums, the LockBit posted, and it's funny because they call me Johnny, and they're like, "Yep, Johnny was right. He got us on this, but you know what? Now that he's pointed it out, we're going to fix it." Fortunately, it's not that easy to just fix. And I knew he was going to kind of play it that way. I don't think LockBit will go away completely because, look at all the new ransomware gangs that stand up. It's not like it takes a lot to get it going, but to become the top dog and running the whole thing and making hundreds of $1 million a year, that is potentially what could be swayed. And my real hope is that shining this light not just tells the public, but it lets criminals know, hey, if you're going to invest, think wisely who you join.
Compared to other people that have relationships with
I have a real good relationship with the drive-thru guy at Arby's.
Yes.
That's about as deep as I can go.
Well, it was like yesterday, a friend of mine who's working an IR investigation for a small company, they haven't been able to, their ID that you use to start negotiation on the chat log, he couldn't get it to work. So he was like, hey, I've never used, the Tox to talk to them directly. We always, use the proper channels. Can you get me their Tox ID? And I was like, sure. So I went to log in, and sure, as I'm doing it, I couldn't believe it because I honestly have been feared that there was going to be retaliation, and LockBit pops up and he's like,
whoa,
hey Johnny, I'm back.
So let me ask you about that.
And,
so LockBit, the name of the code, the name of the gang, right? There's the core group.
Yeah.
And you said that core group has about 100 regular employees that is part of the core group.
Yeah, that's a core gang.
But then there's also all of the affiliates. So this is a large organization. This is a large criminal organization. This is huge.
Yes,
especially the way that and correct me if I'm wrong, but especially the way that it's organized in the sense that some people do this task, some people do that task, and they don't know each other. Like that's the definition of organized crime.
Exactly what they.
Yeah. Well, ironically, criminals got upset that I called it that and called me naive and said, how dare I make those accusations? And I'm like, maybe you watch too many movies on what you might think organized crime
is. This is like actual organized crime.
The mafia or something. Yeah. This is what it's become, though. And that's exactly what it is. And it's one of the top, if not the top organization in Russia that's doing, these type of operations. So it definitely is an organized criminal crime syndicate for sure.
Mr. LockBit, the sup, kind of when he shows up and says, hey Johnny, I'm back, couple things pop in my mind. One, run as fast as I can down the street and call my parents, like I don't know what to do. Two, but honestly, so is there one head? Because in your last research you said the one managing, the administrator of all this is basically who we're calling LockBit, but there was really another one you felt was also like a president and like a vice president kind of.
Yeah, there's one core guy who is behind it all, and then he has, just like any type of crime family, he has
whatever.
You've got your captains, you've got your street soldiers, you've got your affiliates.
Yes, and they all have different roles. Yeah, and now the operation is so big with Tox. It used to be, if you tried to talk, you would talk to him or one other person, and now, they're 24/7 now. So, and it takes over a week for them to get back sometimes. So yeah, they've got multiple people that are working that channel. But I've talked to them enough that it's obvious when which role
you can tell the persona from the type of language or the way they're speaking and what they're speaking to.
And I talk to them enough that it's just it's usually the leader that I usually talk to. But sometimes there's a guy who's younger there that's way more friendly. But they're always professional with me. They're never shitty with me, and it shocks me because they do. I see them get shitty with people, and maybe it's because I'm professional with them. I don't know, but I prefer it that way. But it's weird for me because it's at a point now, and I can tell you guys a story if you want. But there was a moment where somebody that would be in the know was concerned that the leader of LockBit might have been killed, and he was not. But literally, these people are going to not like me for saying this, but I don't want to see physical violence or harm happen to this person. They should be in jail, but I don't want to see something horrific happen to them. So I was honestly relieved when I found out that they weren't dead. And I know that sounds crazy because people are like, oh yeah, they're do these horrible things, but I don't want to see the person.
If you talk to people in federal law enforcement, they feel somewhat similar when they go after organized crime, right? They've kind of developed professional relationships with them in the sense that, look, there's a foul on the play. You got to go into the penalty box, right? You got to do that, but I don't want to hurt the person necessarily, right? I'm not trying to physically harm the person. I don't wish that on them. You just want them to play by the rules.
It's weird.
Come work for take a huge pay cut, but come work for the right side,
I think the leader of
Yeah.
LockBit, it's past that, but I want to see him in a cell, not
exactly.
in a grave,
So how we've talked about this in the past. What are some of the reasons these guys don't come to justice? And I'm only asking that. I think I know the answer, but I want to ask based on your experience.
Yeah. Well, so honestly, my answer is different than what it would have been a month ago. So a month ago, I would have told you, this is still part of it. I would say it's the money, it's the street cred, it's the, being infamous and known throughout the world, and the allure to it. But honestly, what I've really been trying to understand more, and I've got a long way to go, but sort of the culture there.
LockBit isn't just ransomware. It's a cyber plague. It is organized crime run like a high-performing business. Healthcare systems in the heartland were hit hard. Patients got turned away. Ambulances got rerouted. Right here in America, towns got paralyzed. Data was held hostage. Doctors locked out of systems. And small businesses were shut down permanently. They didn't discriminate. They hit anyone who couldn't fight back. If you had a firewall and a prayer, you were a target. Then, February 2024, the takedown. The FBI raids. 7,000 victim decryption keys were recovered and shared among the victims. Arrests were made in Poland and Ukraine. The FBI and the NCA from Britain mocked LockBit online. The cyber underworld began to implode. Their criminal organization and their criminal enterprise started to dissolve. But did it really? And who was behind it all? And now Jon DiMaggio, the cyber researcher and sleuth who helped unmask LockBit's kingpin, tells the story. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and now the show.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Most business leaders have a fatal flaw which results in their growth being interrupted or stopped terminally. They ignore the mountain they're about to crash into, distracted by the focus on revenue growth. Until it's too late. Don't become another fatal business statistic. Keep your cybersecurity modern so you can grow without interruption. Stay competitive. Get NetGain. Stay focused on your growth and funding. While NetGain keeps your technology always available with expert-level cybersecurity services to stop breaches in their tracks, all at a fraction of the cost of managing it yourself. Don't wait for a technology disaster to interrupt and cripple your growth. Speak with a specialist today. Contact NetGain Technologies today at 844-777-6278 or reach out online at netgainit.com. That's 844-777-6278 and netgainit.com. Grow your business uninterrupted. Contact NetGain today.
And, I was talking to somebody who is in the legal system and represents people involved in ransomware crimes. And one of the things he pointed out to me was a lot of the people, if you look, are really young. And the reason they get into this is because they come from parts of the world where they don't have any opportunity. Their families and themselves are even threatened at times. And this is a no-brainer for them. And I really hadn't looked at it that way. So to answer your question, some of them, it's the path that makes the most sense
similar to your
for
research
them
on
and their
Bastard Lord,
situation.
the last Ransomware Diaries,
Correct.
Volume 2, where you heard his story and the
Correct.
reason why he got into it, because when his mom was in the hospital and things like that, there was no other way to pay for the medical care. Right, because of the part of the world that they're living in.
Right, correct. Yes, that is correct. And, it's like this kid that got arrested, I think it was in Arizona, who was working for LockBit and he came from Eastern Europe. That's where he's from, but he just got arrested here. But the point being, he was 17 when he started working for him. And I was pretty hard on him in the report. But in reality, I hope that person learns. He's gonna get another chance. He's young enough. He's gonna have a second chance. And I really hope that things change for him and he takes a different path. But again, I didn't quite look at the reason why. I'm like, why would they do this? It's so stupid. But I have a whole different life than we have a whole different life. It doesn't make it okay. I'm just saying I'm less judgmental about it now. It's absolutely wrong, but it can be wrong and I can come after you and want to get you arrested and chase you
Absolutely.
without judgment. I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and I mean, what's really wrong about it is when they do leak the data, if they can get their infrastructure fixed, if they actually do leak the data, the harm that comes when it's medical records and it's private things that are, sacred to people, and they get released, and that stuff can be used to, harass and torment people for years to come. The financial records, right? It can be used for identity theft, and identity theft and things like that have been shown to lead to suicidal ideation, depression, it's causing a lot of harm. It's not just data, right? It's not just a bunch of Excel spreadsheets with data. Like, it's not just that. It actually is really harming a lot of people. So let's not ever lose track of that. But some of the people and the reasons clearly justifiable if you think about it, right? So let me ask you: were they breached? Do you think was LockBit breached, or were they taken down? What do you think happened?
Can I say that part of the story, because that's super interesting and it just happened? Yeah. So it was. I was at Black Hat
just a couple weeks ago.
A couple weeks ago. And while I was there, right before I left, I had made a social media post, which in hindsight may not have been the smartest thing I've done. It was a joke. I took LockBit's data leak site, took a screenshot of it. I made a counter to match when my report was going to come out. And I basically, and I made LockBit a victim. I changed it from LockBit 3.0 to LockBit 3.0, and I put my face on it as the bad guy, and I made them the victim entry. And I said, give me $10 million or I'm unleashing all of your secrets on whatever it was, August 15th or whatever.
Right.
And it was a joke. I thought it was very obvious. Fortunately, at the same time that I did that, someone actually hacked or tried to hack LockBit. So at the same time I did that, LockBit actually disappeared on Tox. They went offline and they were gone. Yeah, they were gone for, it was like 10, 12 days, something like that. They were just gone. And that has not ever happened since they've been in existence. 1 or 2 days was the longest we'd seen before. So this was huge. And so these, affiliates who I have relationships with started reaching out to me, and they're like, did you really hack our infrastructure? Are you de-anonymizing us? And are you going to release our identities? And first off, even if I could do that,
dox them.
Yeah, that's not your MO at all. No.
Well, I mean, look, law enforcement knows who these players are to the extent that they do. It's not like that's, could lead to physical harm.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
Right.
And
it's not your personality.
I'm not out this publicly and embarrass people. Like that's not what I'm about. Whether you're a criminal or whoever, it's just not how I handle things. But anyway, I'm not a hacker either. So I'm like, no. I'm like, you think I could do that, but I haven't hacked in probably 15 years. That was legally for a job when I used to do that. But anyway, I'm like, I don't have the kind of skill set. I couldn't do it. But here's what the problem though is multiple people were coming to me that are senior level people, and I realized it's not just me. I thought LockBit just blocked me. I didn't realize no one could talk to him, and that's when I realized, oh my goodness, like this is a lot bigger than I thought. So it looked like I was extorting them, and their infrastructure went down. And then
was this your post?
Yes, that's it. That is.
I just wanted to share that with everybody. So this is Jon's post. Check that out. Let me zoom in for everybody, and you can kind of see. What all did you say? You said LockBit, you have until the 15th of August to pay $10 million. And then right after that was...
Yes. The right after that is when they disappeared. I started getting people asking me, if I had actually hacked them. And I was like, oh, this is bad. Like, this is... Like I said, it was supposed to be a joke.
Do we have any information about what happened? Was it a DDoS attack? Was it just infrastructure, the hosting side?
So the next day, I got a message from somebody that I don't know, and they showed me a screenshot from a private report from a cybersecurity company who I'm not going to name just because it's not my business to name them. And in that report, there was a picture of the admin panel. The admin panel is not something that very only like affiliates, people close in really know about it. I'm sure there are some other researchers that have figured it out like me, but what I'm saying is 95% of the ransomware population doesn't know it unless you're working for LockBit. So I knew that this legitimized the report, the fact that they had the right Tor link, the URL, the onion link. And they had a screenshot of the panel, and then where you log in, it said, but do we really have to, indicating that they'd found a way to bypass it. And, there was other information that then was given to me that their leaders or the crew, the main crew of LockBit had found some code on their infrastructure that shouldn't be there. So I can't reach out and tell them it's not me because the comms are down. So, and I was sweating it. I was already having other security related concerns at the conference. And yeah, it was, this is a life that I live. I'm not complaining, but I'm just trying to explain so you can life, day in my life. That was definitely stressful. But that's why I've always tried to be professional and establish a relationship even with bad guys, because I think that's probably what saved my ass, that people believed me was that the bad guys believed me, is that I did have that relationship. And I guess they came to
I didn't even think about that. That could have been a takedown through law enforcement, through an offensive.
I learned.
Absolutely. Now we're on the same side, right? Like, we're not trying to, just don't let us muck it up. That's what we're trying to do. So let me ask you, have you heard from Bastard, or did you get any sense from him? I thought there was some mention in your recent report, because he was the subject of the human side of ransomware. Yep. He was an affiliate. You understood the human reasons why he was drawn to this life of crime. And there was, at the end of that, we kind of left it with, it looked like he was thinking of getting out of it or not, but who knows. But now that LockBit was having these struggles, have you communicated with him? Well, what's his feedback?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, cybercrime junkies. Got a question that keeps you up at night, or ever wish you could hear from a specific guest, or have a true cybercrime story you want us to investigate? You can now text our studio directly at 904-867-4466. Don't be a stranger. Text us at 904-867-4466. Don't miss the chance to be part of the conversation. Text us direct at 904-867-4466.
So I communicate with him fairly regularly, maybe once a week, once every other week. We'll have a chat here and there. If I need information about non-LockBit stuff, sometimes I'll ask him, because he's connected with the National Hazard Agency, which works for a bunch of different hacking crew, ransomware crews. So yeah, I'll talk to him and ask him about things. And when this stuff was going on, I definitely reached out and asked him. He just like many of the other ones, thought that I was behind it. Of course I assured him that I wasn't, but yeah, he definitely thought that I had done it also, which again just shocked me that people, I couldn't believe that people believed it. It makes sense to post out.
I appreciate you thinking so highly of my skill set, but this was probably beyond what I could do.
Meanwhile, my email crashed.
So the you have a picture in your Ransomware Diaries Volume 3 of this tattooed young lad who's got snakeskin pants on and stuff, and that's the FBI's Newark, New Jersey field office, saying that they've been very busy. Was that the gentleman that got indicted? That was the former LockBit affiliate?
He is indicted, and he is a former affiliate, but that's not the one I was referring to earlier. Boris is a lot smarter than what I was talking about. Boris, his real name's not Boris. His actual last name
and
is
he hasn't been caught, correct? Right.
He has not been caught. No. There's a $10 million
$10 million on your head. That's why he's got the snakeskin pants and the full arm.
Right. I talked to him, I've talked to him not as frequently as Bastard Lord, but still once every couple of weeks.
Does he work for other organizations too, like LockBit and Conti or Clop or whatever?
He did. He doesn't now. So that's what I wanted to know what he was doing. So he was behind a lot of the big groups. He had worked with. He was one of the guys behind the Washington D.C. ransom that took place a couple of years back, and some other big ones. But he's connected to a bunch of gangs. But LockBit was one of the core ones that he worked for, and so that was one of the things I wanted to know since I talked to him fairly regularly. I asked him, I'm like, hey man, are you like still working ransoms now that you've got so much attention? Are you still doing that? And they said no, he's taking a break, and his version of a break is he's now looking at developing 0-day exploits. And he didn't say this part. I'm saying this. I'm sure he's going to sell those to ransomware. But he was working, when I talked to him, he was working on a new vulnerability for Microsoft SharePoint that he was trying to polish off. But he also, and this didn't put this in my report, I wouldn't share this except he put it out there, publicly. So yeah, he's doing well. He's getting married, things like that. So he's not he's not feeling the heat. This indictment, if anything,
his street credibility, right? A lot of traveling to the West, I guess, right? Share his new exploits of SharePoint. Yeah, so, wow, lots of things to discuss. So, can I ask you on separate from your ransomware diaries, the Move It exploit has been all over. Right. And with the Klopp ransomware gang, which is traditionally operates kind of like LockBit. Right. But now they haven't really been launching ransomware. They took advantage of that 0-day exploit for this file transfer program that it seemed like everybody in the world was using at the time. And they're just going to pure extortion. They're just like going in, stealing data and then leaking it. And apparently their infrastructure works because it's constantly being leaked. What's your take on that? I mean, it seems to be growing every week. It's something we've been following from the beginning, because my fear right off the bat was this is going to be like another SolarWinds. And it seems like it's growing and growing and growing.
More of it.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. They get the 0 day is the most effective when people don't know about it or there's not a patch. But I was talking with some other analysts and we kind of had this common, idea, theory. What really happened here is they used that and they got into all these companies. But as soon as they got in, they created additional backdoors. So by the time all these companies are hearing about it and they're patching it, they think they're clean and they're not. And that's why we keep seeing
it doesn't matter if you patch it, right? They still have the backdoors. Interesting.
And that's our.
So what's next for LockBit in your opinion? I was almost sensing when I first read this, it reminded me of REvil and REvil and how they kind of got too big. They might have done something wrong with the Russian government, the FSB or something, and then they got taken down, this big visual display, or did they, right? What happens next now for LockBit?
Here's the thing. LockBit's going to do everything humanly possible to fix their program. I don't know why they just don't go away. They've made so much money. I honestly, it'd be ego. I can't figure it out, but they're not going to go away. They've made that very clear to me.
They're addicted to the process.
So they're going to try.
Wow.
They enjoy the day in and day out part of it.
Right. What I think will happen, I think that they'll continue to have problems. I think that over the next year, we're going to see, it start to really, we've already seen some of the impacts. They're booming again right now, but we've already seen some of the impacts. And I think that they're going to, business will slow down. And as it slows down, their problems will also start to get better because there'll be less data. And there's, new kids on the block that are coming up. Eventually somebody's going to become more popular and LockBit will go down in the numbers, but they'll still make lots of money and it still be a pain. But I hope that they completely fold and that happens. The only reason that I'm saying that I can't go on a limb and say that that's going to happen is because these guys are they're so dedicated. They're as dedicated to running their program as I am to chasing them. I mean, they love what they do. It's strange, but they do. And so I don't see them just folding. But all these things, all these problems they have, all these issues, one of the things somebody said to me was like, hey, whether I agree with it or not, they said, hey, you were part of making them go offline for like 9 days. And while the lights were on, nobody was home. So while their websites and everything was up and the automation was still working, there was nobody home. That doesn't happen often. So, if you could do it, like others can do it, law enforcement can do it, governments can do it. So I do think eventually the more of these type of things happen, the more opportunity there is for mistakes and for interception and to get in. And the more paranoid these groups are going to get. So I do think that there's going to be windows for law enforcement to do things. And I do think that there's a possibility that LockBit will go down over the next year, which is why I made the cover that I did. We're definitely seeing cracks. It's whether or not they can fix them before things fall apart. And I'm not a fortune teller, so I can't say that. But what I do know is they've known about these problems for a while, and they haven't been able to fix them. That's good for us.
Well, yeah, I just can't help but think that it's, it sounds like grasping for straws with the repackaging of Conti's code. Like, that sounds like a desperate move, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's the other thing I forgot to mention, though. That's the other thing is, at least as of January, February, they were trying to steal payloads from their competition.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And they want to put it in. Yeah. And they want their affiliate hackers to use multiple ransomware variants to encrypt victim data. So that way, if the FBI gets one key, they're still stuck and have to pay a ransom. So that would be bad for us. Fortunately, it's bad for other ransomware gangs too, who are not just gonna lay down and let that happen. But he's trying, and LockBit is very capable. And we should never underestimate that organization. He's trying. Hopefully, it doesn't happen. But yeah, he doesn't have a developer. He doesn't have new ransomware that I'm aware of. Eventually, I gotta imagine that's going to change. But think about it: how many experienced ransomware developers are out there that are out there?
I don't think MIT or Stanford has a program for that. But right. So during the I think your point, you're it's almost one of those things. The closer you get to the target, the more blurry it is, right? Like as you're talking about them getting panicky, and Mark pointed out them, repackaging a competitor's code and all that. It's almost like during those moments of panic, they could burn the wrong bridge and cross the line like REvil did, right? Potentially.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a possibility. And the reason that there's even a higher probability of that is because also something I realized during this round of research is LockBit made a statement. He's like, I watch my affiliates by watching the news. He's like, why do I have to follow them when the media does? So what that tells me is there's not, even though he says in the rules on their page, they recently updated to be really specific, but not to attack, X, Y, and Z type of industry or critical infrastructure. The point is that there's not a means to prevent it. He has to see it after the fact. So all it takes is one of these guys being dumb enough to go and attack critical infrastructure that makes that sort of an impact, like we saw with REvil, and
critical infrastructure. And I know that the LockBit platform will check languages and things, right? But they don't know everywhere that Russia has interests, right? Yeah. And so they could go after and hit something that could be damaging to the motherland and then get themselves in trouble. Right. Interesting. Wow. So you first came about a huge splash years ago with the REvil, with your investigation there. And people have asked me whatever happened to those gentlemen?
Well, that's actually what one of the top contenders, what my next research might be, because I have a lot of inside information on that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
share a little bit of it, but
what's next?
You got to share something.
I'll share the end result, because the interesting part of that research is going to be showing the inside information that proves it. But the REvil that exists today is not the REvil that we saw in their heyday. Leaders of REvil that made all those things happen are gone. They're not arrested. They're just gone. And they've gone off into the sunset. There are people that are part of the gang that were arrested, but they were not the core players. And so they actually sold the REvil ransomware to an affiliate crew who tried to repackage it for a while as though they were REvil, but they didn't do a good job of it, and they didn't have the same tactics, the same TTPs, the same human behaviors, anything, and they just went about doing things differently. And again, I'm minimizing it because I've got some good stuff on that to blow that open. But the end result is that's actually a different group. Those are affiliates. And now the guys that were arrested, those are the people that you see now it's been in the news that are working and supporting Russia in the war against Ukraine. And that's why you see Revo ransomware being used.
That's what I was asking. Because they were brought to, we saw those images of them in court, in the Russian court. And I'm like, okay, well, their court system isn't what our court system is.
Now you work for Russia.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, they do. Those guys were part of that crew. It's just
they weren't the leadership core.
I imagine the pay is a little different.
Probably a lot less. The pay is you get to live. Right.
I would take that over being.
So,
I wasn't sure about the know. I feel like I gotta take a break.
Flying a little too close to the sun at this point, I think.
Yeah, maybe LockBit, Klopp and Conti join form like a.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
This was good stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Well, that wraps this up. Thank you for joining us. We hope you enjoyed our episode. The next one is coming right up. We appreciate you making this an award-winning podcast and downloading on Apple and Spotify and subscribing to our YouTube channel. This is Cybercrime Junkies, and we thank you for watching.